welcome to another episode of Technology in a Tent. Today we have a special guest, Rick Rasmussen, friend, investor, VP. I mean, you've done everything. So welcome to the show, Rick.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming and making time. So just now you're at Nest, kind of the guy behind Kayvon, because he only is one Kayvon. And
Yeah.
I know you're the guy behind the guy who gets things done. So tell us a little about yourself, tell us about Nest, tell us about Sandhill Angels, Vodafone, Canada. Tell us about all these things that
Okay.
Rick Rasmussen does, because it's crazy. I mean, you are a multi-talented ninja.
I have a very short attention span.
Perfect.
It's really fun to do. So yeah, a little bit of background. So I'm from Silicon Valley. And how many people do you ever meet that are actually born and raised here?
I haven't met any.
That's the usual answer, because it's pretty rare. I mean, I was here, I grew up between an apricot orchard and a walnut orchard.
Okay.
I grew there weren't even freeways, there were highways with stoplights everywhere. There was these just little towns, little downtown centers surrounded by fields everywhere. That's what Palo Alto was like, Redwood City was like, and everything.
So my first trip to Silicon Valley was in '85.
Yeah.
And literally where there's like malls and things now, it was cornfields, and we used to go steal corn in the fields and get chased by dogs being 7, 8 years old. It was first time from Germany. But
Yeah.
so then did you leave, or where did the Canada thing came
Oh,
from?
so, all right. So just stepping through then. So I went to school at Berkeley, not too far. It's the farthest actually I've ever lived away from San Jose. Where
By the way,
Wait.
that's a different world,
Yeah.
right? It's a different continent.
Berkeley is.
Berkeley, for
People's
sure.
Republic of Berkeley.
Yep.
Yeah. Studied electrical engineering, but then left school and never designed a single thing in my life. So I went into marketing and product development and things along those lines straight away.
Interesting, because usually it's the other way around, right?
Yeah.
People aren't technical and they want to be technical, and they study business and don't do anything with it, and you did the exact opposite, right?
Right.
So that's pretty funny. Okay, so Vodafone and all these corporate R&D things I saw that you've done.
Yeah.
What was that like? And then all of a sudden, I see you've been with Sandhill Angels for a while, so I'm sure you've seen a ton of startups and a ton of deals. But tell us a little bit, like the transition from corporate R&D structure to startups, and then again, I want to know about this Canada thing.
I'll totally tell you.
Because we have a lot of friends who are Canadian, and I want to know the Canada effect.
Okay. So this is the Reader's Digest version, really short.
Okay.
So first real job was at a startup called LSI Logic, which grew from 0 to $4 billion during my tenure there.
Okay.
So saw that grow, corporate world, and saw the transition from a startup into a large corporation. We have all the controls and very large departments, facilities around the world, and so on. It really changes.
Okay.
It's really fun being part of a startup because it's very creative and there's no rules and you can invent things as you go in your own image, but then as things grow larger, maybe not so much. And so I left LSI Logic, which invented the custom integrated circuit.
Interesting.
There. Went to a small startup called CQ Microsystems, which invented the MPEG and the JPEG standards. So digital video compression became real. So we were the guys with the chips behind DVDs, digital broadcasts.
What year was this?
That was in the 80s, and late 80s, early 90s.
Okay.
Then I left the corporate world and just started doing the startup thing.
Huh.
So I would have friends call me up and say, hey, I'm doing a startup. Okay, we'd sit down, we'd design a business plan, kind of, sort of. We'd go raise some money. I'd often join my friend and we'd get going and get the company to a certain stage, usually up to and through first product.
Wow. Do you think that the corporate experience gave you a better building block or foundation to kind of turbocharge these startups? Because for me personally, I've resisted the corporate structure all my life, but I know now in some ways, like I lack that sense of structure and that sense of, that process, or the corporate kind of checklist of things and how to do things in an organized fashion. I have just as much ADD, and so to me, I always thought that corporate structure would limit my creativity.
Yeah.
And so I was always afraid of it, and I never gave into it. So, how was it for you? Did it actually help?
It's just yet another set of life experiences. It's one of those things. So you've traveled all over the world, and each one of those places where you've been is added to that collective knowledge.
Oh, yeah.
It's the same thing in different jobs.
Totally.
So maybe you don't have that corporate experience. You can always hire people that do, and if you recognize your own strengths and weaknesses, you surround yourself by others that could complement or supplement your strengths.
That's if you have a $400 million fund backing you. Not when you're bootstrapping a TV show. It's hard to build a team. But no, I understand. It's even for myself, it's been an interesting learning experience to figure out really quickly how other people's skills, kind of combine with mine or are complementary.
Yeah.
And then just say, look, this is not my strength. Run with it,
Right.
And that empowering people on your team is something that I think is really, really important. And as a leader or someone that's kind of in this position, the better you get at that, the more efficient you become and the company becomes.
Yeah.
So.
There are people that are really good at sorting things out like that. A lot of the strongest recruiters around the valley will actually interview you and try to figure out who should build around you and what your team should look like, and then they'll help you go ahead and recruit.
There's a company that does that?
Sure.
Oh my God.
I'll introduce you.
I need to meet
No,
them.
this is not a commercial.
Okay,
I'll introduce you.
Okay, so then let's fast forward a little bit. You've been with Sandal Angels for a while.
Yep.
Tell me about that experience. And do you like more being involved at that stage where it's about fundraising and investment, or do you like still the building and?
My day-to-day tasks are going into a place like NestGSV, which is a startup for startups, and going hands-on inventing things.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I do. But in that process, I've had the ability to go ahead and make some investments.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing those on my own, and it was largely companies that I'd worked with or worked for, and I wanted to diversify my portfolio. So an angel group like Sand Hill Angels is ideal for something like that.
How many members?
It's got 80, between 60 and 80 in any given point in time.
Mm-hmm. And roughly, what's the size of the deals, and how many deals are they doing as a group?
We see roughly 60 deals a month.
Wow.
Yeah.
2 a day.
Yeah, 2 a day.
Wow.
And then from that pool, there's a group that likes to pre-screen individual companies. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. This is the best baklava from Beirut,
Okay.
freshly delivered.
Awesome. I want to hear some Beirut stories.
And it's not a commercial either, but just I'm an addict, and it's starting to show a little bit.
Okay. So Sand Hill Angels. So we narrowed that pool of companies down to 8 that are looked at more closely. Then ultimately 3 of them are selected for a dinner meeting that's held.
Oh, it's kind of social, kind of open. So kind of get to know the people.
No, this is the actual
presentation.
The presentation.
Oh wow!
So there's a little bit of social about an hour beforehand. It's just us, but then a company comes in and pitches.
Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, there's 3 of them. It's not that difficult, but they get time. Pitch for 20 minutes and 20 minutes of Q&A.
Okay.
And then everybody who's there at the meeting has a sheet of paper in front of them, and you say, "Do you want to invest? If so, how much? And are you willing to help with due diligence?"
Okay.
Is that
the kind of where you lose half the people? Because I think due diligence is a pain, and usually that's like the thing. Okay, we got to find the lead investor who's willing to commit to due diligence. Is it a sense of community where a few of the guys in the group or girls, ladies, get together and say, you know what, we like this deal. We'll kind of collaborate on the due diligence.
Yeah.
Is that how it works?
Exactly. So usually what you have is a deal lead who really believes in it, and then because it's all volunteer, that person then becomes responsible for herding the team. And again, you need different expertise. So you need somebody who can look at legal contracts. You need somebody to go through their financial statements. You need somebody to talk to the team.
But that's really what the group is, right? It's an army of people with different skill sets and different expertise and money.
Yeah.
Do you guys then do the whole deal? Do you syndicate? Do you then are you the lead investor or just participate?
Different things. But there needs to be at least a minimum deal size, which for us is $100,000. So if those sheets of paper come back and they don't add up to 100, it's not worth them.
Okay, makes sense.
So then our max deal, ours is fairly typically 250-ish.
Okay.
And so if it's at that level, typically we'll do a convertible note in that range. But if then we start to talk to other investors, or maybe they have some notes already being pulled into the deal, or there's some syndication going on, then it becomes large enough to go ahead and do a priced round. And so we can be the lead on that if we need to, or we can work with somebody else who wants to be the lead.
Cool.
Mostly we do it.
So
And
this next question might be a little bit painful. What's the company that you missed as far as you didn't pull the trigger and you saw and you're like, maybe, and then all of a sudden it's $1 billion?
It starts with a G and has an
well, that one's not fair. Like everybody, like I could have bought the stock at 80 and
No. This one's worse.
Worse?
So I was at the demo conference in the year 2000, and I was sitting there with Les Videz, who was the head of Intel Capital at the time.
Mm-hmm.
We was rapping, and I had a term sheet from them, and we're going to do a deal together. And then this one guy walks up and he says, "Hey, I'm so-and-so, and I'm starting a search engine company." And we hear him out, and that was kind of interesting, but he walks away, and we start laughing. I mean, oh my God, Excite and Alta Vista and InfoSeek and all the great search engines, how can this little startup go up against those? So,
200 and something $1 billion later,
Larry Page was the guy.
Rick's like, crap,
Oh, that close. I was
there
that
was
close.
my island in the Caribbean, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, but what about...
There's others. There's smaller ones you wouldn't have heard of.
Now that's a good one. Any of them where you just knew right away and like that you just like loved and you still obviously maybe potentially are involved with?
Yeah.
Like what's a cool one?
I still do stuff like that. So I'm an advisor with a few companies.
Mm-hmm.
One of them's here today, a company called ShareCraft, that it's a software platform to connect entrepreneurs globally.
Okay.
And it's not dissimilar to what we do here at Nest.
Yeah.
But it's a global software-oriented platform, whereas we're a facility and events and things like that. So that's cool. I'm an advisor.
Cool.
I really like it.
And then do you take a hands-on role and really?
Mm-hmm.
Do you actually help? Like an hour a month, 2 hours a month? I mean, what's what's a reasonable amount of time to get from Rick?
So typically it depends on the CEO and when you're an advisor. And it's on demand. So I may get asked to review contracts or sit in on deal negotiations or something like that, where that takes a big solid block of time. Or I may just get a phone call once a week or once a month.
Sure.
Depending on what's needed.
On call. Okay.
On call.
So then let's talk about Nest a little bit. You know, obviously Kayvon is a dear friend, almost like family to me. We have this half Kayvonian connection. But you know, I knew Kayvon before I was in tech. That's what's crazy about it.
Okay.
And so when he told me about Nest, you know, he's like, I'm building an incubator. And when I first came here, I'm like, holy guacamole, like it's a monstrosity, you know. And there's a funny story about the building. The transistor was invented here?
No, well,
something was invented here.
Okay.
Yeah.
What I tell people is that this was the home of Ampex Corporation. Ampex was the inventor of audio tape, magnetotape of any kind. Audio tape,
so cool.
videotape, the VCR, everything was invented here.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So that's the real story, and it changed the world. Because what it allowed you to do is to get out of the studio for the first time. Everything up to that point, ever, was a live recording.
All right. That obviously since then there have been other people in this building, but this building, let's talk about that. 70,000 square feet of entrepreneurship, startups, companies, deal making, connections. You guys do a little bit of everything, and that's why I love the word ecobator, because it really means an ecosystem and an incubator and like everything. And I know obviously Kayvon has relationships with everywhere, and you know, I see the potential of building this little mini city. Like this is really what this is. And so you guys are doing educational programs, you guys are doing events, and so tell us a little bit. And then obviously we want to, you know, part of this discussion is we want to tie this to the Middle East, and we want to build a bridge, and that's what the show is all about. So you know, give us a little bit more insight on Nest and the vision and kind of the inside scoop on what's going on.
Yeah, well, as far as an accelerator, it's different. And the reason it's different is, yes, we have a building, it's a nice building, but it's not our center. It's everything we do really orients around services that we're performing to help startups get to the next step. Okay. So when a startup comes in, the first thing we don't do is get them desk. The first thing we do is actually bring them up to the boardroom. Yeah. And every Friday we shut down
the boardroom. Chess pieces on the roof. It is actually a upside down boardroom. It's one of the coolest rooms I've seen. I love that place.
I do too.
We'll put a picture on our website.
This place is fun because this building, I've mentioned Ampex, which is a company in the 30s, 40s, 50s. This building was torn down in the 90s and then resurrected in this form and became the home of Excite and Excite at Home as well, which are both two big .com era companies. And so I got that feeling of the 90s, the best days of the .com. The chessboard upside down, the slide.
The slide. There's a slide in this building from the second floor, and that alone just makes it one of the coolest buildings. But it does have this semi communist, big 80s kind of brick building feel to it.
I don't know about that because it's light. I just came from Armenia, and I know what communist buildings are like. But
Eastern Germany, you have these square brick buildings. That's what I think.
It's a little bit like that. It's got a European feel to it a little bit.
Cool. But there's tennis courts, there's a gym, there's a food court. It's really you could literally live here, and many of us end up staying here 17, 18 hours a day. And so tell us exactly, so what do you do at Nest? And what does Rick do on a daily basis here?
Yeah, so there's 3 different types of business development that get done here. One of them is working with startups. It's recruiting startups. It's bringing them into the interview process that we do with them, where we get to know them better and try to figure out what sort of services they need. We have somebody that manages our external relationships with corporations and service providers and VCs. And then me, I do everything having to do with international operations.
Okay, are we finally going to talk about Canada?
Yep.
Okay, so because, again, there's this magic about Canada, and I don't know what it is. Maybe because I'm European, but there's this kind of organicness about Canada and the people I meet from Canada. And so what is your connection to Canada? And tell us what you do stuff at the consulate. I know you actually help companies come here. So tell us a little bit about how Canada ties into Nest. And ideally, what we'd like to do is duplicate that model with the Middle East.
So I'm not Canadian. Again, I'm from here.
Head cheerleader.
Through a friend of a friend, I got introduced to Canada as a potential consulting opportunity. They had one of their trade commissioners, the name of the title, was going out on maternity leave, and they needed somebody to replace her for a year.
Okay.
Got a call. I interviewed. Boom. Got the job. Okay, I'm a trade commissioner.
Nice.
It's just one of those.
I want to be a trade. You get a diplomat license plate?
No, unfortunately.
I want one of those.
I do too. I do too. Because I was American. If they give them one to the Canadians.
Free parking for life? That sounds amazing.
Yeah. It's get out of jail free card almost.
Literally, I spend $50 a day in parking in the city when I go to San Francisco.
Yeah, no, you can park anywhere.
It's
anywhere within a mile of a consulate.
That's our next goal.
I have some ideas.
Cool.
So what I found was I was getting phone calls from random Canadian companies that said, I want to come to Silicon Valley and raise my funding now.
Can you introduce me to Mark Zuckerberg?
No, Mark Zuckerberg was, but they in their head had this thought that the VCs were just here with this big pile of money by the front door, and if they walked in, they'd get a sack, and then they just go home. It was going to be really cool. So
not true. It does not exist. There's no such thing as free money or easy money.
No,
and
quite the opposite.
It's quite the opposite. And
so I mentioned the deal flow for Sand Hill Angels.
Yeah.
If once you run through all the math, it's about 1% of the deals that we look at that come in the door that we actually end up investing in, and that's not dissimilar to most other VCs. Around here.
I know some where it's maybe 0.3, 0.5%, depending on size of the fund and what stage.
So you turn that opposite. That means 99 out of 100 don't get an investment.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so it's not easy. So what I ended up doing with the Canadians over my tenure there, which was 3 years, designed a whole process of going up into Canada, qualifying companies. We bring VCs from here. So I traveled with, Dave McClure and Bill Pye and others up there. We gave seminars and then had companies go through pitches. Out of a pool of 1,000, we would look at 20 per city for 5 days. That's 100. And then we qualify 20 of those to come down here.
Did Ken work on that with you?
Ken
Rakowski?
Yeah, I invited him to one of the later ones.
Yeah, because he was telling me the Canada thing, and I always want to know, what is this Canada appeal?
So I started that here in Silicon Valley, but then I started recruiting other consulates around. So I recruited LA, San Diego, New York, Tokyo, and that was it, I think. Denver.
Okay, and so then now...
But so process, short term, and then long term. The long term one was where I met Kayvon.
Okay.
So what we ended up doing was Canadian companies who wanted to be down here for a longer period of time we ended up renting space over at Plug and Play Tech Center, which is where Kevin was.
Yeah.
He was the co-founder there. And so since he ran all projects other than just pure real estate, I got to know him from a services perspective.
Sure.
So we got to build that model from scratch because we were inventing.
Yeah.
And got to know each other over the course of really 5 years ago now.
Huh. Yeah, that's right around when I met him. Some Hala and Jazzy event.
2008,
Total
2009.
round, yeah. Okay, so then
so that's Canada.
Canada. You're doing it with.
So then I left. It was government.
Yeah.
And my ADD kicked in, and I'm not a bureaucrat by nature. So
No comment.
I consider that a personal compliment for me. So I started helping other governments. So I was getting calls from Belgium, from some of the Canadian provinces who wanted to set up independent programs.
Yeah.
So I got a call from Galen. He said he was setting this place up and needed somebody to help out with strategy in general, international in particular. Boom, I was here first day.
Yeah, I was here the first day too, and then it's really overwhelming. So for the audience, I don't know if you know, 70,000 square feet is something like 8,000 square meters on 2 floors, and literally it's a city. So
Yeah.
You guys have a bunch of things going on here, a bunch of companies already, partnerships, and you really the idea is kind of a home that helps you develop your business. So
Yeah.
I really love, obviously, what Kayvon's doing, what you guys are doing. So we're at this part of the show, which we call Lessons Through Stories.
Okay,
I think you had a chance to look at the board, or do you want me to grab it?
grab it.
I'll grab it. 1 second. So we do things a little bit differently than most chats. We dig a little bit deeper. So
Okay.
our audience knows this. It's our board, and we add and remove and take things off and take them off, put them back on once in a while. But we have got these funny topics.
Okay.
So it's really on the fly, where you have to tell us a funny story, personal, that you
Okay.
haven't told before, that is correlating to this topic,
Okay.
and then really tell us how it's helped you in whatever you've done. So which
Okay.
one?
What's PMV of 8 million? What does that mean?
I think that's the abbreviation for pre-money valuation.
Oh, okay.
Of
Yeah,
8
that sounds
million.
right.
Okay. What do you say?
I wouldn't pick that one.
You wouldn't pick that one? Okay.
No. A goofy one. Artificial deadlines.
I swear, my favorite.
Okay.
My favorite, and if you ever meet Clarence, who's going to be on the show in a week or so,
Okay.
Clarence Wooten, best piece of advice I ever got.
Yeah. Artificial deadlines. Okay. So you use that as your own tool for personal motivation.
Totally.
All right.
And the stricter and harder and faster they are,
Yeah.
the more you get done. But
Okay.
I want to hear
Well,
how
just along those lines, but I'll make up my own artificial deadlines. But
yeah, don't we all?
I motivate myself by fear of failure. Yeah. So I never want to let anybody down. And so I commit, overcommit.
Overcommit. Ooh.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of that right now. And then I go ahead, but I always do my best to pull through.
Okay, and then
And so I've developed a sensor for exactly what's needed
Sure.
and when and how much. And
so,
so on.
but then over promise and under deliver. I mean, under promise and over deliver.
I've reached about parity right now,
Okay, interesting.
where I know my own capacity, but then towards the end I'll freak out a little bit. Example being, I don't know if I mentioned I put an educational program into the government of Armenia. So,
You mentioned it briefly. We were going to
Okay.
talk about this. A little
yeah,
more.
so it was 30 classroom hours of material. Typically takes 10 hours worth of time to generate 1 classroom hour.
Yep.
So I'd way overcommitted. I said I was going to get that done in about a month.
And who helped you, Isabel,
Me.
or did anybody help you with it?
No.
Come on, you have a team here. who can
But
support you.
that was my contract with Armenia, so they didn't
Okay.
do that.
Cool.
So artificial deadlines. The one that cracks me up. I was just telling this story to somebody yesterday.
You're supposed to tell a story that you haven't told publicly. So this is a
Oh no,
private
this hasn't been public.
Okay,
No,
cool.
no,
All right,
no.
you heard it here first, other than the person who heard it yesterday. So go ahead.
I had a boss, my
Right.
favorite bosses of all times. He's a
Right.
former U.S. Marine,
Uh-huh.
tough as nails, that had a heart of gold.
Mhm.
And I learned so much from him. He happened to be the guy at C-Cube, which is a digital video company I mentioned. He just had this thing for artificial deadlines. So the one, I was running marketing at the time, and the thing that he wanted me to do was to generate a press release each and every week, no matter what.
Oh, God.
I had to create a story out of thin air that was going to be published, and if it wasn't in the newspaper somewhere, I got yelled at loud. And so it's just nobody else has ever done that to me before, and it just because I would make up the craziest things about a brand new product that we were thinking about, that we were going to do,
market research,
or discussions we were having with some potential partner, and things like that. And so it taught me how to be very creative in a way that I was never lying.
Okay, good.
But it's always been good in discussions and negotiations to find out what somebody really cared about, and then learn how to draw out things in such a way that, like I said, I could publish every week. It's fun.
So how many weeks did you last?
I did that for 3 years.
3? Okay, so we're gonna check this. There should be 150 something articles.
This is pre-internet. This is pre-internet.
Pre-internet.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's on a typewriter. That's great.
On foils.
On foils.
You'd have to put them in curve. You know what foils are.
That is hilarious.
Yeah.
Okay, one final thing that I like to ask sometimes is, instead of people say new rules, what's an old rule? Like, what's a rule that you've always had for yourself and always had for people that you deal with? Just one of those that like you know what? This is one of my rules. Like, if you're gonna do this with me, this is what you have to abide by. Or what's one of those fundamental things that either irks you or you just try to establish early on?
Yeah. So it's I'm a big person on trust, and anybody I ever deal with from a business perspective, and I kind of learned this the hard way a couple of times.
Yeah.
Through a couple of startups, is if you don't develop that same trust, that same moral fiber and system, together side by side with the person you're working with, it will fall apart. The business relationship will fall apart.
So then,
and it gets ugly when that happens.
But how do you? You can go on your gut feeling, right?
Right.
And you can hope that there's trust, or you can give trust. But how do you protect yourself from someone being untrustworthy? Or is there a way? Is there a mechanism?
The Americanism is kind of is first off we're multicultural, as we all well know.
Sure.
It's a land of immigrants, and so if somebody's first generation or even second generation, I try to get to learn to know cultural values.
Sure.
And around the cultural values, you can kind of figure out, because Chinese think differently than the Indians do, than the Canadians do.
Yep.
It took me a while to learn that. And so I'm looking forward, actually, to getting over to the Arab world and getting to know what the business culture is like, and how to make an agreement with somebody.
Yeah.
How social is it? How business factual is it? What's the?
You know what? Okay, so it's a little bit old school.
Yeah.
As far as like relationships and a handshake deal, which I like.
Yeah.
The problem that I see, or I guess the opportunity, is the idea of collaborating and transparency. They're not really adopted yet, because partially people still feel a little maybe threatened, or they want to know your angle, or they want to see like, what are you selling, or who are you? If you're a complete stranger. But what I've noticed is,
so the assumption going in is mistrust, or at least
it's just cautiousness.
Okay,
but if someone has brought you to that meeting or introduced you that is respected, or somehow someone that's done business with that person before, then basically they're saying, here's the bond that I'm putting on this person, my word, or my relationship is but you know what? In a much more organic kind of I don't know, it's a different feeling. Like here, you can introduce me to someone, but there, like, once someone makes that introduction, then really it's for you to F it up.
Okay.
You've got kind of an open reign as far as what you can do. But then you also have to, there's a push and pull, and you can't go too fast. And then, inshallah could mean, next month, it could mean next year. So you have to really learn these things. And even for me, like, my father's Middle Eastern, Iranian.
Mm-hmm.
I went to the Middle East for the first time last year. And what I know of the culture is from friends and family and, books and TV.
Okay.
I am still learning, and especially the Arab culture is a little bit different than the Iranian, but the root is about the same. But it's a learning experience. I've been to 62 countries now, and every one of these countries is an experience, and it's a learning process. But I would say the relationships that are built or set up, they're a little bit deeper, a little more human, a little bit more like, homely. Like, I don't know how to describe it.
So in the U.S., we don't, our family ties, our generations where we've all worked and lived together, it doesn't happen here. It's a very temporal culture.
Totally.
Yeah. So the neighbor down the street, may only be there for 2-3 years.
Exactly. And that's exactly what it is. So for me, it's harder to get in with someone.
Okay.
But once you're in, like, literally, if you don't mess up or you don't do anything untrustworthy or shady, then it's a friend for life, and it means you can sleep at their house or come to dinner or just knock on the door and show up, and it's perfectly okay, because part of the culture is about sharing and getting together and telling stories.
Yeah.
And it's almost. There's a saying in Farsi, at least, that says that when you showed up at my door, it's a gift from God, because of the enjoyment that you get of seeing the person. So here literally sometimes it's like you have to spend a couple of weeks chasing someone and coordinating a call, email, hey, coffee, lunch, and then sometimes it doesn't still happen. There it's like Tuesday, 2 o'clock, like it's on, and we're gonna make it happen. So anyway, so what we're trying to do with the show is inspire, teach both directions. We want to share these ways of life, these cultures, and so want to thank you for coming on the show.
Absolutely, this was fun.
Hopefully, I get to see you in Beirut when we're launching this whole thing, and we want to do something with you guys. We want to. So I don't know if I mentioned, we are running a Indiegogo campaign to sponsor 10 companies from the Middle East. And so I would like to officially sponsor one of those companies to end up here at Nest to work with you.
Awesome.
So that would be awesome. And I think, once we've gone to the elimination process of picking the company, you can see, okay, here, this one I like, this one I like. And then maybe, if it's a cool company, you can also take them to Sandal Angels and really connect with them. And that would be awesome. So Rick, again, we want to thank you for making the time and joining us. We have a little something. It's a hippie t-shirt. So since we don't have a budget for marketing, we might as well have people walking around with the PITME t-shirts, evangelizing.
That's great.
Anyway, so I hope you can wear it once in a while. I've heard, even if you don't wear it in public, many people wear them to the gym or sleeping. So they're comfortable t-shirts, so I hope you enjoy it. And we'll see you hopefully soon in Beirut.
Looking forward to it.
Take care.
Thanks.